Today we're answering the question, why did you incarnate here? Now this is very important information that you need to know, because usually people ask why did they reincarnate, but they don't know what reincarnation is. So we're not only going to be looking at why you incarnated, but actually what reincarnation is, because you have to know what it is. You have to understand the process. You have to know what it is rationally, energetically, to be able to understand why it is that you incarnated, why it is that we incarnated, what your purpose is here, and everything that goes along with that. So there's some very important information here that you need to know as we explore the topic of reincarnation. We're going to get started, but right before we do, I just want to remind you, as always, please like and subscribe. And if you enjoy my work, consider supporting over on Patreon. You get access to members only videos every single week. And today's video that we're having right after this is about the future of reincarnation, as we ask the question, is it possible to reincarnate as AI? So that's the members only video that we're having right after this. Also, I want to remind you, watch out for the scams in the comments. There's a lot of people pretending to be me, saying to join my WhatsApp or join my Telegram. That's a scam. Don't fall for it. That's a bunch of BS. Also, there are people in groups out there who don't want this information to get out there. They don't like what I'm doing. They don't like what we're doing. So be on the lookout for people and groups that are spreading misinformation and disinformation about me and what we're doing here. Use your reason, use your head. Don't fall for that BS. All right, let us begin. So why did you reincarnate? To understand why you reincarnated, we have to answer, what is reincarnation? What is it? Now, I prefer to use the term localization and relocalization rather than reincarnation and incarnation, and I'll explain why in a moment. Now, I want to point out before we begin here, what I'm going to do as well at certain points throughout this video is read a couple quotes from this article on medium.com called You Are a God Dreaming of Time and Space by Story Waters. So if you enjoy some of the quotes that I read from Story Waters here, go support them over on medium.com, go give them a follow. So the reason why, though, is because to understand what reincarnation is, we have to understand what existence is. We have to understand what we're doing here. And Storywater says here, you are infinite consciousness, imagining that it's human. It says to infinite consciousness, embodiment is a radical and progressive as it gets. Is as radical and progressive as it gets. To embody is to turn its back on all that has been known in order to create a new experience. So this is a very important idea that we're going to explore here with regard to why you reincarnated. We have to understand, like I said, what reincarnation is. And so we have to remember that we want to explore this stuff rationally. We want to understand it rationally. So in our system of meta-rationalism, we know that we can understand the metaphysical domain in a rational way. So what we do is we understand that the physical world that we exist in right now is a domain of space and time. Now, the immaterial domain, what you might call the spiritual domain, or the non-physical domain, or the mental domain, the domain of mind, is a realm of frequency. So this is a mathematical reality. It's a reality of reason. And being that it's a mathematical reality, we can understand it via mathematics, and we can understand that this is a reality that is expressing itself via systems of energy. Now, why energy? Because mathematics is frequency and frequency is mathematics. Frequency is an entirely mathematical concept. And so being that frequency is a mathematical concept, we can understand it, we can map it out, and we can understand how it operates. So you aren't a physical being. You're a mathematical being. You are a being of mind. You are a being of frequency. You are an eternal mind. You are a soul. This is what we call a zeta, or a zetic mind. It's an eternal being of frequencies. Now, the immaterial domain is a frequency domain, and then the space-time domain is, of course, a domain of space and time. Now, the thing is that these domains are connected and relate to each other. So if some of this sounds a little confusing or a little abstract at first, as always, just go with it. It's going to make sense. This is the kind of information, though, that you need to know, because if we're going to understand why we incarnate, which is why does a soul become localized in a body, we have to know how the immaterial domain interacts with the physical domain. We have to understand the connection there. So what is the connection there? Well, the connection is, if we take a look at the idea that all of us are eternal beings of frequencies, okay? So that's what each and every one of us is. Each and every one of us is a soul, or an eternal mind, or a zeta. These are different terms for the same thing. Now, what is a soul? What is a mind? What is a zeta? It is a collection of frequencies. That is what a soul, what a mind, what a zeta is. A collection of frequencies, a collection of thought forms. Now, this is what each and every one of us is. Each and every one of us is an individual collection of frequencies, an individual collection of thought forms. So, what is the domain of space-time? What is the physical domain? The physical domain is what arises from the interaction of all of our frequencies together. So let me put it this way. So in mathematics, there's something known as Fourier transforms. And what are Fourier transforms? Fourier transforms are a way of representing frequency information in different ways. So what this means is that you can take frequency information and represent it as space-time information. And it might sound a little strange, but it's just about, here, I'm trying to, where's my pen? Let me grab a pen real quick. And again, stay with me. This is all going to connect and make sense. And it's very important for why it is that we incarnate. So if you take a look at the pen, there's two different ways you can view it. You can view it this way, or you can view it that way. So a Fourier transform is kind of like that. You can take frequency information and you can view it in one way, or you can view it as another way. So you can view it as pure frequency, or you can view it as space-time information. Okay? So frequency information can be represented as space-time information if it is viewed or transformed in a certain way. So another way to look at it is kind of like computer code. If you look at a video game, you can understand the video game by the video game world, or you can understand it through the code. Think of the movie The Matrix, and you had Neo when he was in the Matrix, and he would experience the Matrix from the inside, but then he was able to, switch and see the code, see the Matrix represented a different way. So this is how reality works, where you have information that can be represented in two different ways. As frequency information, like the code, or space-time information, which is the localized reality of experience that we all interact with and in together. So these are two very different ways of experiencing reality. Think of the big difference between experiencing reality as code or being in the video game. Very different ways of experiencing reality. So being that we are eternal beings of frequency, we are beings that are part of the frequency domain. That is what we are. We are beings of frequency. So what is essentially the domain of space-time? Well, it's frequency represented in a different way, like I said, but how does it arise? It arises by the interaction of all of our frequencies together. And once again, stay with me here. This is so important. And the reason why I keep saying stay with me is because I know a lot of people some people get bored. They're like, oh, well, when are we going to talk about, all this is very important. This is the stuff people usually skip past because, no, this is the stuff that you really need to know, that's going to start to open your eyes to new ways of understanding existence. So that's why I just keep emphasizing that. Okay. So reality, we are beings of frequency. When our frequencies interact and combine, this is what creates the domain of space-time. It's the interaction of our frequencies, of our internal thought patterns, all of us together, that give rise to space-time. Here's a way to understand it. Think of all our individual frequencies as being like threads. So think of all of us as being big containers of threads. And that's sort of what our frequencies are, like threads. And each one of us are big containers of threads. Space-time is when those threads start being weaved together to create a tapestry. So space-time is the tapestry that we create from our individual threads. You can look at that tapestry and see that all of our threads are contributing to it. So likewise, we are all beings of frequencies. When our frequencies interact, space-time arises, and it's like that tapestry. So many important things to unpack here. So let's do it one by one. Okay, first of all, this shows, all right, why reality is stable. So reality is a shared dream. This is a shared dream that we all have together. So when you go to sleep and dream at night, that dream is created by your own internal frequencies. So that dream shifts and changes based on your emotions, based on what's going on in your mind, because it's made of your frequencies. So as your mind shifts and your frequency shifts, your dream world shifts as well. So you can think of your dream world as a tapestry that's built from your own threads. So since that tapestry is built from your own threads, well, if you alter the threads, you're going to alter the tapestry. That's your dream world, your tapestry, your frequencies. As you alter, it alters. Well, now think about the domain of space-time, which is where all our frequencies contribute, which is where all our threads contribute. Well, this is why the domain of space-time, because a lot of people think, okay, well, if this is a dream, how come I can't just think about things and change them like in a dream? That's because it's not just your frequencies contributing to it. So again, if you think of that tapestry and all our threads contributing to it, if you start to alter your threads, that's not going to make a very significant difference. Like you can, because remember how many minds, near infinite number of minds in existence, all contributing to this tapestry. You try and alter something, it's not going to change. It's going to be such a tiny change that it wouldn't even be measurable. So this is why reality is a stable reality, and why change takes so long, because it takes, over the course of billions and billions of years, because of all the different frequencies interacting together, all the different threads moving together. Okay, so first of all, that's really important to understand. So space-time is the result of all of our minds, all of our frequencies interacting together to generate this domain of space-time. Now, let's see. There's a couple things that I want to point out here. So if you were to... Now, there's a very, very big difference, okay, from understanding reality from the perspective of being frequency and then being something in the tapestry. And this is the part that's critical here. So the frequency domain is non-local. The space-time domain is local. What does that mean? Local means, an easy way to think of it is based on location. Local, location. Things are location dependent. I am here, you are there. Things are a certain distance. Things are a certain time away, a certain distance away. Things are very location based. So if you think of space-time as being that tapestry, well, imagine that you were inside of the tapestry. If you were inside the tapestry, well, there would be a certain location that you would be on. You'd be, you have the, I'm trying to, so you have a tapestry. There's a certain point where you could be. You could be here, or you could be there, or you could be, if you were inside of the tapestry, you'd be here or there or there or there or there. Be location based. However, you as an eternal mind are not inside of the tapestry. You are contributing to the tapestry, which means your energy, your frequency is distributed throughout the tapestry. So your frequencies aren't in any one location in the tapestry. They're going to be spread out through the entire tapestry. There's not going to be a single location where your threads are. It's going to be dispersed throughout the entire tapestry. So this is a completely different kind of experience than being inside of the tapestry. You are rather, your energy, your frequencies are dispersed throughout the entirety of the tapestry. So if you think of, if you think of a thread, the thread is, if you put down a thread, there's not any one place the thread is. If it were a linear reality, it would be all over. You see, it's non-local. It's not location-based. Let me give it another couple of examples here, because the tapestry analogy starts to break down a little bit, but this is important. So, and we're going to get to why you incarnated and the purpose of reincarnation and all that. And this is key to it. So imagine again, a computer code. A computer code isn't anywhere in the game, it's everywhere. So the video game world is a localized reality. The code world is a non-local reality. If you're in the video game, there's a certain place that you are. Oh, I'm over here in the castle and not over there in the dungeon or the sea or wherever. There's certain locations that you are. However, if you're the code, well, the code is just everywhere. There's not a certain place in the game where the code is. The code is non-local. It's not location-based. Another way to understand this, okay? Here's another really great way to understand this. Okay, so let's say that we are baking. Okay, here's. This is going to sound a little weird at first, but let's go with it. Think about a gingerbread town. I know it's weird, but think about it. Think about a gingerbread town with gingerbread people and gingerbread houses and gingerbread cities and a whole pastry world. Okay? Now imagine that what we are as eternal minds are the ingredients, like the sugar, the salt, the cinnamon, the flour. Pretend that each of those is a certain frequency. Say that salt is a certain frequency, sugar is a certain frequency, cinnamon is a certain frequency, flour is a certain frequency. Well, if you were to be like, and it breaks down a little bit because, salt and flour, they're made up of individual particles, but pretend that it's sort of like one concept. So in that world, if you were to go like, well, where is the sugar? Well, it's everywhere. Where is the flour? Well, it's everywhere. Where is the cinnamon? Well, it's everywhere. So the ingredients are everywhere. So we as non-local entities of frequencies are in a non-local domain where what we are is not localized to any one specific area. Now think about the difference if you would be like, oh, well, where's the gingerbread man named Bob? Oh, well, the gingerbread man named Bob is right over there next to the gingerbread truck. There's a very specific location where that particular gingerbread person is. So and this is all going to tie together, what reincarnation sort of is like allowing a eternal non-local entity to experience a localized existence. In other words, taking an entity that is a frequency entity, or taking an entity that is like an entity of ingredients, and allowing it to experience reality as a particularized, localized manifestation of those ingredients. In other words, letting the ingredients, which is everywhere, experience the world as one of the gingerbread people. Now, experiencing the world as one of the gingerbread people is going to be completely different than experiencing that world as the ingredients, which is everywhere. Because if you're everywhere, you're also nowhere. You're everywhere and nowhere. There's no one place. You're distributed across the entire place. Now, of course, remember, we're all contributing to this. We're all the individual ingredients together. We're all different threads in the tapestry together. Let me pull up some quotes here by Story Waters. So Story Waters says, because you have one physical body, you can only be in one place at one time. So yeah, if you're an individual body, you can only be at one place at one time. That should be kind of obvious. If you are a gingerbread person in the gingerbread world, there's only one place you can be at one time. To consciousness, which does not exist in space and time, and that's right, mind, what we are, mental entities, are beings of frequencies that don't exist within space-time, just like the code doesn't exist within the game. It is what gives rise to the game. So to consciousness, which does not exist in space and time, the idea of only being able to be in one physical location at a time feels unimaginably limited. It seems like an impossible contortion of perception to be able to live through. So it's a completely different kind of existence. It's for a soul, for a mind, for a Zedic mind, to experience the world through a body, through an avatar, is a totally different kind of experience than experiencing reality as frequencies. And being able to experience reality in a different mode requires limits. So that's the whole point. It requires limitation. So think about the gingerbread town. I know it's kind of a silly analogy, but hey, it works. The ingredients are everywhere. But if you limit it down to a particular manifestation of those ingredients, a limited manifestation of those ingredients, like the gingerbread person, well, you see how you have, instead of all the ingredients, you've limited it to a particular manifestation of those ingredients. A particular manifestation of frequencies. And so you have an eternal mind, an eternal soul, a Zedic mind that is experiencing reality as a being of pure frequency, as a being of pure thought. When a incarnation happens, and see, this is why I prefer the word localization, because it localizes, makes a mind that is not location-based experience location-based existence. It localizes. It can now experience a location-based existence based on the parameters of space and time, rather being a frequency entity. It still is, but it's experiencing it in now a localized way. And so Storywater says, and that's just it. To wider consciousness / spirit, and this is what we are as individual minds, embodiment is impossible to imagine being human. If spirit wants to know what it feels like, it has to have the experience for itself. And that's exactly right. You can't know what it's like until you experience it. This is why there's two aspects to reality. There's knowledge and understanding of the formal way that reality works and operates, and then the experience of reality, the experience of existence. And minds, eternal minds, even though they build from their own frequencies an entire universe, they don't know what it is like until they actually localize in one of the avatars, in one of the bodies, have a limited experience. Here's another way to imagine it. It's not exactly right, but it gives kind of the idea. Imagine you as a mind sort of being outside in space, looking down at the earth. If you're outside in space, looking down at the earth, you can see the entirety of the earth all at once. I mean, particular sides of it, angles of it. But you know what I mean. You can see the whole thing. But if you've never been on the planet, you don't know what it's like. Even though you can see the whole thing in its entirety, to know what it's like to be on the planet, you have to have a much more limited viewpoint. You have to go down, all the way down, and actually be one of the humans. Now you can't see the earth anymore. You can only see what's around you, but it's a completely different experience. So do you see how there's two modes of experience? And some of them are more useful at certain things than others. Being able to see everything all at once can sometimes be very useful, but you miss the details. And then when you're zoomed in the details, you know what's going on around you in your localized environment, but you can sometimes miss the big picture. This is the problem that humanity has right now. It has the localized understanding of existence, but it's not seeing the big picture. It's not seeing the big picture from the realm of the absolute, of eternal mind, of the metaphysical domain. And this is why we want to introduce meta-rationalism, where we show that the metaphysical domain can be understood rationally. We can understand it mathematically. We can understand it through these different modes of understanding how energy works, how frequency interacts. We can build technologies based on all this. We can understand the metaphysical domain with more rigor than science understands the physical domain. And so, like I said before, humanity has this very limited scope. And it has become so immersed in the localized dream world that it has created for itself, it doesn't have the big picture understanding of existence. And this is what I talk about in relation to, this is a little bit of a tangent, but in raising your consciousness, this entails a new structure of the psyche developing called the analog I. See, when humanity gained self-awareness, it gained the concept of the self and an analog I. It went, oh, I am an I. That concept was created. It knew that it was an I. Humanity gained self-awareness. Humanity now needs to gain all awareness or hyper-awareness by creating a new concept in the mind of the analog all, which is the concept of the big picture of our interconnectedness. So do you see the problem? Humanity has the localized, detailed view, but it's completely lacking the big picture view. This big picture view is what will allow humanity to raise their consciousness, realize that we live in an interconnected world, in a tapestry where all our threads are linked together, and then we can build a planetary civilization with this new consciousness based on the big picture of reality. You see, just like humanity couldn't build governments and structures and cities and cultures until they developed self-awareness, humanity can't build a planetary civilization until they develop hyper-awareness or all-awareness by understanding the interconnectivity of reality, of existence. So, Storywaters here says, eternal consciousness cannot know what it is to be human without being human. The infinite cannot know what it is like to be embodied with time and space without being in time and space. We cannot imagine what it is like to have our breadth of focus be reduced from the infinite to the finite. We could not imagine it, so we are living it. We are the experience of choice. To infinite consciousness, embodiment is a radical and progressive as it gets. To embody is to turn its back on all that has been known in order to create a new experience. Embodied consciousness unfolds its experience by making choices. Having to make choices is exciting to infinite consciousness. So the idea here is that so there's a couple elements to this. So let's get into the idea. So with this understanding of how reality works on a kind of basic level, let's move to the question of, well, why did we reincarnate? Now, I think part of it's kind of answered. You can kind of see it already, that we did so to have a new experience, to explore our dream world. Now, the thing is that people go, well, how come I don't remember this? Well, this is because our avatars have evolved to limit our consciousness. In other words, we went into a state of forgetfulness. The reason why is because, look, and I'm trying to think of like how much time we have here because I don't know, I want to be able to get all this in. But look, reality is cyclical. It goes through a cyclical process. So we go through a process of incarnating, exploring, understanding reality, coming together and evolving into the absolute. And then we start all over again. So we play this game with ourselves again and again and again. And so we forget our previous universal cycle so that we can have the joy of experience a new universal cycle again. So we start off in an unconscious state where we have forgotten all of this. Evolution evolves such that avatars are created in a way that makes it so that our survival is possible. So evolution is occurring. And how is evolution? Evolution is just the interaction of our frequency patterns gaining more and more stable structures. As our frequency patterns interact, more stable structures arise, unstable structures become extinct, and they form higher and higher structures. Eventually, avatars develop that are possible for hosting now a mental link, a Zedic link, a link between a soul and an avatar. So what is an avatar? An avatar is just an interface for an eternal Zedic mind and a localized interface that is transmitting information. So what I mean by that is, what is your body? Your body is a filter of information. You only see a tiny fraction of the waves that are out there. You only see the visible light spectrum. You don't see all the gamma rays and the X-rays and ultraviolet rays. You don't see any of that. Your body is a limiting system. So as a Zedic mind, which is a function of frequency, it's a mathematical function of frequency. Your body is a space-time function, but a mathematical function nonetheless. These two functions interact with each other such that space-time information is transmitted to you as an eternal mind. So basically what that means is that your mind is given limited information which allows it to have a localized experience. So when you incarnate or localize, it's not like you as a soul comes flying down and goes inside of a body. No, you exist in the frequency domain. You always exist in the frequency domain. But you are receiving information that is giving you the experience of being in this domain. So you are receiving and experiencing information. This is how this interaction occurs. You as an eternal mind are always in the domain of mind. You never go inside of the domain of space-time. So think of it kind of like a VR headset. Your body is kind of like a virtual reality headset. When you put on a virtual reality headset, you have the experience of being in a new world. But are you actually inside of that world? No, you're inside the room that you are when you started. But the VR headset and the controllers feed you information and give you the means to interact within that VR virtual reality world, even though you're not in it. An avatar and a body gives you information to experience that realm and the physical means to interact in that realm. So you have a variety of structures. You have the structure of the psyche, which develops an ego and all your different structures that allow it to have self-awareness and go, oh, I am an I. You have the body that allows physical interaction. So you have the mental structure, the structure of the psyche that allows for self-awareness, to interact socially, to understand language, etc., linear functions of the mind. And then you have the body to be able to interact physically. This gives you, this is like the VR headset and the controllers and the programming, all allowing you to interact. So when you have a VR, when you put on a VR headset, you also like have a character. Let's say it's an RPG, a fantasy game. So you have a certain character with certain abilities. Let's say you're a wizard and you can cast spells. Well, if you're a wizard and you can cast spells, that means you're not a warrior and you can't fight with a sword or something. Like you're limited. You're a specific character that has a specific role with specific abilities. But that's not you. That's not who you really are. Who you really are is the person outside the game that went into. You're not actually a wizard, or you're not actually one that casts spells, etc. Well, you're not actually this avatar. You're not actually this person. It's an expression of you, and it's how you interact. So this is the egoic version of you, the avatar version of you. You as a specific character in this world. So you don't want to identify with this. It's not who you are. It's not what you are, but it's a particular expression of yourself. It's a particular mode of expression that allows you to interface and interact in this domain of space and time and difference and diversity, which gives you a unique way of experiencing reality. So a couple things to note here, okay? So why do you incarnate? One reason that you incarnate is to have a new experience. Another reason that you incarnate is to learn, grow, and understand, to evolve. So you as a Zedic mind are a system of mathematical frequency. As you learn and gather information, this causes you as a mind to evolve. Just like bodies evolve, minds evolve. So as you interact with us, see, this is what allows us to interact as well with other minds. We now enter into the realm of diversity and difference where we can have interactions with each other. I am here, you are there. We can have all sorts of community, cultural experiences together. And there's a lot to enjoy about the physical world. And, that's kind of the old way of thinking that it's been said that like the angels fell to experience sex. That's kind of like a metaphor for understanding that eternal minds can have new embodied experiences with each other in new and novel ways, new and interesting ways that allow us to connect through art, through music, through love, through sex, all these different ways that we can interact with each other in this mode of experience. And this all contributes, while we're doing this, we're learning new things. We're understanding new concepts. This is causing our minds to evolve. You can think of as, you are having all these experiences. Your mind is like a Rubik's Cube that's evolving and transforming as it learns and understands new things. So you come, one reason to incarnate is to have a new localized experience full of completely new types of interactions, completely new types of encounters, completely new types of experience in general. And another reason is to evolve, learn, and grow. And then another reason for those minds that are capable, are ready for it, is to help others learn, grow, and understand. So when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow's extended hierarchy, Maslow's original hierarchy, the pinnacle was self-actualization. Well, his extended hierarchy, there's a higher level called transcendence. And transcendence is when not only are you working on your own self-actualization, but you're helping others self-actualize as well. And you have this concept in Buddhism as well, known as bodhisattvas, who choose to forego nirvana, to incarnate again, to help others reach enlightenment. So you have this idea of incarnating to help others and help the world, to help the world evolve. So this is a big reason why many of us are here. We're at a pivotal time in history. If you look at where we are right now, we are at an inflection point. The world is ready to go through a big shift where it's on the cusp of going from a phase of survival to a phase of thriving, a phase of divisiveness to a phase of diversity, a phase of fractured life to a phase of unified existence. So many of us here have taken upon ourselves to create this new beginning, to create a purposeful reality. And that's what we are as Neogenians. We are this new beginning. We are this shift. This shift, this transformation isn't something that we're watching unfold. It is what we are and are participating in and co-creating and building and making happen right now. We are the threads in that tapestry working together to form a beautiful picture and helping others to realize that they can help us create a beautiful picture as well. So a big takeaway that I want people to really understand from this is that physical existence is not, see, the Gnostics thought that physical existence was hell, that it was a prison, that they were trapped here and that they had to escape. That's not the case. But you can see how a soul or a mind would have that intuition. Why would a soul or a mind have that intuition? Because it's limited. It's been limited. It feels, you go from a non-local existence where you are all to a limited existence. It can feel like you're trapped and in a prison if that world is in a poor state. See, this is the problem. Physical existence seems like a prison, or seems like hell, or seems like a place that needs to be escaped because we're in a world that has been created as a hellish landscape. We live in a world where we have oppressive religions, scientific materialism that tells you you're nothing but dead, lifeless matter, it creates a nihilistic and purposeless, meaningless life. Capitalism, which turns everything into a product. You as a number, not you as an actual person, but just a consumer and a worker. So we live in this hellish world, and we feel that limitation, and so we feel like we're in a prison, and we feel like we want to escape. But that's not what actually is going on. What actually is going on is this realm can be a beautiful place for us to experience reality in beautiful new ways. If reality wasn't like that, if reality, I'm just making sure my mic is still on. If reality wasn't such a hellish landscape, none of us would feel like we'd want to leave. See, imagine it like this. Let's say you play a VR video game, you put on the headset, and it's just a shit game. Let's say it has it's just painful, it's uncomfortable, it's not satisfying. Yeah, you're gonna be like, I want to take this off and I never want to play the game again. But if you play a VR game that's fun, you'll be like, oh man, this is so much fun. And then when you take it, when you're done, you'll be like, wow, I can't wait to play that game again tomorrow. So it's not that physical reality is a hell that needs to be escaped or a prison. It's that it feels that way because this world has been created into a terrible, hellish landscape, but we can transform it. And that's what we are here to do as the new beginning. We talk about how we want to build the kingdom of heaven on earth, metaphorically speaking, when we come together and we can co-create a reality that is based on prosperity and purpose and meaning and art and reason and knowledge. And when we come together to create that world together, you see it's not a hellish place anymore. It's a beautiful place where we can have this very unique experience of experiencing each other in a localized way. Then it's like this fun game that we're all playing together. See, reality is going through a phase where it's transitioning from a state of survival to a state of play and fun and celebration and creation. And that's what it should be. This reality has basically, the function of this reality is a place for us to have joyous experiences together while learning and growing. We are gods. What do gods do? Gods create and enjoy their creation. That's the whole point. So it's not like we're just here and got trapped here, and the goal is now to escape. The thing is that this is a critical part of what we are. It's a part of the exploration of ourselves. And once we can create this reality into something beautiful, then we'll understand that it's not a place that we're trying to escape. It's a certain mode of existence that allows us to have beautiful expressions together. So this is why we need to change our focus. You have so many of these religions and even New Age systems and even spirituality that focuses on escape. No, you're just going to be pulled right back in the cycle of incarnations, because it's not about escaping. It's about transforming and creating and learning and growing. So as long as these religions and New Age systems and everyone's focusing on escaping, well, what happens? No one's focused on creating a beautiful world. So the world's going to stay like shit. You need to have a shift in a mindset and shift in consciousness. Instead of being obsessed with escaping, become obsessed with transformation and creating. And when we all become that healthy obsession of creating and transforming, and we're all focused on creating and building a beautiful new world together. Can you imagine? Look at all the different thought systems and religions and whatnot. You know, in Christianity, it's all about, pleasing God and getting to heaven. Buddhism and whatnot, it's about, being free of karma and reaching nirvana, and New Age spirituality, not all of it, but some of it's about, transcending to become an ascended master or whatever. Instead of all these religions being focused on what Nietzsche called the Hinterwelt, which is like some far off place. If everyone were focused on creating a new world here, a beautiful new beginning here, then we would be having a beautiful existence together. And humanity is just going to keep getting localized back on Earth until they get their shit together and transform the world, or society collapses. Well, we're the ones who have our shit together, and we're here to transform the world. That's what we're here to do. That's why we're Neogenians. That's why we're the new beginning. Now, there's a lot that I wasn't able to touch on. There's so much more to talk about, but we are actually going to have a members only video right now that's going to pick up right where this left off, where we're going to talk about the future of reincarnation. We're going to take a look at, is it possible to reincarnate as AI? We're going to take a look at the intersection of technology, spirituality, and nature, because people often look at these things as being separate, nature, spirituality, and technology. But actually, they're expressions of, we'll get to it. All right. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the members only video. So yeah, like I said, I hope you got a lot from this. If you enjoy my work, consider supporting over on Patreon, where you'll get access to those videos. And always, I never want anyone to feel pressured. Don't ever feel like you have to support monetarily. You don't have to. There are plenty of free ways you can support by liking and sharing and subscribing. And big shout out to everyone who does support, especially, let's see, Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, Fairies of Venus, DB, William, Enki, Nusalina, Jose, and everyone else. You can support by hitting the join button right here below this video on YouTube, or here's the link for Patreon right over here. Thank you very much.